Hi again, everybody. Thanks for hopping on board on this latest edition of Gun on One. It is powered by the Inside the Birds Network and sponsored by my bookie. I'm Derrick Gunn. My guest for this week's show is one of my all-time Philadelphia favorites. Ever since I arrived to this area back in 1997, he immediately became one of my all-time favorites. He was then, he still is today. He is a Hall of Fame writer, and allegedly he has retired, although that is up for debate on a daily basis. He is the one and only Ray Didinger. Ray, how are you today, sir?
I'm good, Derrick. How are you doing?
Good, man. So good to see you. I appreciate you doing this. I have so many different areas I want to cover with you, but as I must make our viewers aware that as we record this podcast, the Eagles make a trade. You know, Howie Roseman does it again. They trade for safety Kevin Byard from the Tennessee Titans for a fifth and sixth round pick in 2024, plus safety Terrell Edmonds. And Ray, your thoughts on Howie bringing in an all-pro safety. Last year he went out and got himself a cornerback. This year he gets an all-pro safety.
I know, pretty good. I really thought there was a very good chance he was going to make some kind of a deal before the deadline to address the secondary. Because even though they survived last night with Miami and actually played very well defensively, the fact is they were pretty thin back there. And I just thought bringing in a veteran was a good move. To bring in a veteran who has all pro credentials is more than I expected. And it's a terrific pickup. I mean, for two third-day draft picks, Terrell Edmonds, who, at this point probably wasn't going to play much for you anyway. It's a great move. It's a great move by Howie. And, I think we're probably going to see some history here because I'll have to research this, but I think I can't ever imagine in the history of the National Football League, there's ever been a team that lined up with two safeties from Middle Tennessee State. I think that I think the Eagles are breaking new ground here with this. But listen, we've had Blankenship has been a pleasant surprise. I mean, undrafted free agent has come in and played very well. But Byard is a guy that everybody knew who he was coming out of school. He was a third-round draft pick. Has played very well in Tennessee. And hey, listen, his first year as a full-time starter, he led the league in interceptions. So, absolutely a big upgrade. And I think that, once again, tip your hat to Howie. I mean, he kind of knew what this team needed, and he went out and got him, and he got him at a bargain price.
Ray, for a moment, take a trip down your journalism memory lane. Can you remember a GM as aggressive as Howie? Does any name come to surface right away?
As aggressive?
Yeah.
Jumping sports, I would, I go back to the old Flyers and Keith Allen, who was the general manager of the Flyers. I mean, now we're going back to the Broad Street Bully days, but he was, well, they called him Keith the Thief because of his ability to make very shrewd trades and make deals and bring in guys that people had hardly ever heard of that came here and became stars. I mean, he makes a trade for a minor league center named Rick McLeish. Everybody says, who's that? The guy comes in and scores 50 goals. So, I mean, he more than anybody, he was responsible for building that team that won the 2 Stanley Cups. And he did it with good drafts, but he also did it with some trades that nobody saw coming, but almost all of them worked out.
All right, I want to jump ahead now to the current Philadelphia Eagles. And you look at this Eagles offense, it's not as fluid as it was in 2022, yet statistically it's right up there in just about every category, which is an amazement in itself. Give me your assessment of what we're looking at when we talk about this Eagles offense.
Yeah, I mentioned to somebody in the run-up to the Miami game, they were saying, boy, that Miami offense is scary. They're number one. I said, "Do you realize the Eagles are number 2?" And they go, "No, they can't." No, they are. Look it up. I mean, they have. I mean, they were 100 yards per game behind Miami, but they were indeed number 2. So yeah, I mean, it hasn't looked like it because it hasn't been, as you said, the smoothest kind of operation. But they have piled up the yardage. But two things sort of cloud the picture. One of them is for all the yards and everything I've put up, they have not been very efficient in the red zone, which is where people kind of define their offense. And the Eagles have been a team that has been sort of stumbling around in the red zone. And the other part is they're turning the ball over a lot, which which sort of will negate a lot of the yardage if you're turning the ball over. And that's been a concern. I mean, Jalen Hurts at this point through 7 games has 10 turnovers, already more than he had all last year. And that's, some aspects of this offense have been really good. I mean, DeAndre Swift has been obviously a very good addition. A.J. Brown right now, I don't know if there's a receiver in football that I would take over him right now. I mean, he's playing that well. And the line, we know what the line is. The line was very good last year. It's very good again this year. So all of those pieces are there, but they haven't really hit their stride in the same way that they did a year ago. And some of that I think you could probably attribute to the change in the offensive coordinator. I mean, that's probably had something to do with it. But all the pieces are still there. And the only concern that I have really moving forward is the health of the quarterback. Jalen Hurts came out of last night's game a little gimpy. I think it was pretty obvious. And even though Nick Sirianni and some of his teammates kind of tried to say, "Oh, it's no big deal," Jalen will play through it, tough as nails, which he is. But the question is, okay, really, how healthy is he, and how ready is he going to be for the game from Washington? If you can get through that, and then you got a week off and kind of heal up a little bit. But that's the one thing that to me, that's the one big question that hangs out there now is, okay, how healthy is he, and how healthy is he going to be moving forward?
You just mentioned A.J. Brown and you, along with Devontae Smith. 2022, they're both 1,000-yard receivers. Obviously, they still have a long way to go, but their numbers are looking pretty good this year. Would you go so far as to say that this is the best wide receiving duo in Eagles history?
It depends on how you define your history. It depends, like when most people talk NFL history and they talk about a team, they'll generally start with the Super Bowl era. Most people don't. Most people, when they talk about the history of the franchise, they don't really want to go back to the 30s, 40s, 50s, and so forth. So when they try to make these kinds of comparisons, they'll generally start with the late 60s and what they call the Super Bowl era. And in that time frame, yeah, probably. I mean, you had at one point there in the early 80s, you had Mike Quick and Harold Carmichael together, who are Mike Quick they're both great players. Harold Carmichael's a Hall of Famer. Mike Quick is an Eagles Hall of Famer. And they have a whole bunch of records. I mean, Harold's the most productive receiver the franchise has ever had. Most catches, most yards, most touchdowns. And Mike Quick was a great player in his own right. But the thing is, when they were together, Harold was sort of at the end of his career and Mike was just starting out. So they weren't at their peak the way these two guys are. That's the difference there. I think if you wanted to talk in terms of like the last 50 years, yeah, it probably is. I think it probably is. Now, if you wanted to really go in the Wayback Machine and go all the way back, I might still put McDonald and Retzlaff ahead of them because McDonald is a Hall of Famer now, and Retzlaff I think probably should be. And when they won the championship in 1960, I mean that was a team they couldn't run the ball from me to you. I mean they didn't run the ball at all. I mean, here this will just give you an idea. I know it was a little before your time, Derrick, but just to give you a clue,
Just a little.
a little bit, but just to give you a clue, that 1960 team that won a world championship, mind you, the two starting running backs did not average 3 yards a carry. They did not average 3 yards a carry. They averaged 2.7 yards per carry. I mean, they just couldn't run the ball a lick. But they won a world championship because they had a great quarterback and they had great receivers. And McDonald and Retzlaff were truly great players, and they really were great that year. And I think were probably the keys, along with the quarterback, to them winning a championship. So if I had to look at the whole history of the team, I would probably at this point still say McDonald and Retzlaff. But if you just want to try to go modern era here, I would probably say these guys. And, right now, they're, I think they're the best pair of receivers in the league. And A.J. Brown, just keeps getting better every week. I mean, my goodness. I mean, he makes 125-yard games look ordinary. I mean, most guys that's a career day, and he does it like every week. And Devontae Smith, it was odd to see him struggle against the Jets. I mean, you're just not used to seeing him drop passes. But he bounced back this week and played the way we're used to seeing him playing. I mean, they're genuinely great receivers, the both of them, and playing together in that offense, they're absolutely dynamic.
Right. What about this pair of young defensive tackles in Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter? They are wrecking offensive lines. Has the combination of the two even exceeded your expectations of them?
Maybe a little bit.
Okay.
I really thought Carter was going to be a game wrecker right from the beginning. I really didn't think, based on what I had seen of him in college, I really didn't think there was going to be much of a learning curve. I mean, to me, he looked like, when watching him play in Georgia, especially last year, I mean, he looked like a pro player playing on Saturday. I mean, he looked like an NFL player last year. So I had no doubt that, I mean, he was going to be plug and play. I mean, you put him on the field, he was going to be a playmaker right away, and he has been. And Jordan Davis, I guess the only thing that surprises me about Jordan Davis is he's more of a factor in the pass rush than I think a lot of people thought he was going to be. Personally, and I know there were a lot of people last year that sort of said, oh, he's a disappointment. I thought we're going to get more out of him. He doesn't look like he's a guy that's going to play like a really first-round draft pick, blah, blah, blah. I didn't see it that way. I mean, I thought that it took him – he was a little slow getting started, but I thought you saw him really coming on towards midseason, and then he got hurt, and then he never really got back to full strength the rest of the season. But I thought he showed a lot last year, and I really felt that, I mean, his characterization of him that he's just a 330-pound guy that's going to be a run stuffer. Well, he's a 330-pound guy that ran a sub 540. So he's, this is not Gilbert Brown. I mean, this is a guy that can get out of his stance and get up the field. So I thought that he could develop into a pass rush factor, but I think he's been even a little bit better at that and a little further along this year than I thought he was going to be. But you're right. But you're quite right. The pairing of the two of those guys together right there. And I think the fact they know each other, they've known each other, they've played together in college helps too. But two young guys with that level of talent in the middle of your defensive line it's really, really, I mean, the Eagles are well set there for a long time.
We've had so many question marks about Sean Desai because he's had such a limited body of work as a defensive coordinator. And you look at what he's had to go through this season. He's had to mix and match the back end of his defense just about every game. But wow, I mean, somehow, some way, his defense, his back end comes up, makes a big stop, makes a big play. Can you give me your perception of what he's been able to do, not just with the back end of his defense, but how his overall scheme has gelled together and really helped this team win the number of games they've won?
Yeah, I agree. I think we were all wondering, how the change at both coordinators were going to impact this team. And I didn't know that much about Sean. And I was kind of saying, okay, in terms of philosophy, how is his philosophy going to be different than Jonathan Gannon's? And I'm really impressed by what he's done. I really am. To take this many new pieces, this many new players, and incorporate them in the system. And it's all new to him. I mean, the new guys that are just coming in, the rookies and the first year guys, they're new. But with a new coordinator coming in with a new system, it's all new to the veterans too. So you're really kind of starting at square one. And I kind of thought the defense would be slow coming around. I thought that over the course of the season, they would probably be pretty good because they have a lot of talent there. But I thought, early in the season, you're probably going to see some hiccups here. Probably going to be some breakdowns. You're probably going to see some blown coverages. You're probably going to see some big plays. But we really haven't. I mean, I think that they have been very solid, and never more so than the game against Miami. I mean, coming into that game, there were a lot of people around the league that were just saying, I don't know how the Eagles are going to match up with these guys, with all that speed that Miami has, and they have it. The Eagles going to, especially because they're a little short in the secondary right now, are they going to be able to play with those guys? But I thought Sean did a great job, came up with a great scheme, because what he really did was he just relied on his front seven. Everybody thought this was going to be a matter of the question of can the back end of their defense hold up? But Sean, he took it from another way, and he said, and his philosophy was, no, our front seven is going to make the difference, because they're going to stop the run, and that's going to allow us to play our two safeties deep, and that will minimize their opportunity to make the big play. So while everybody was always thinking this was going to be all about the secondary and how it was going to handle the Miami speed, no. The key to this was that the Eagles' front seven took away the run, let the safeties play deep cover, and that was how they slowed down the Miami offense. An offense that came in averaging about 500 yards a game, and the Eagles held them to 244 and 1 touchdown. It was really a tremendous performance. Credit to the players, but I got to give a lot of credit to Desai, because I thought he came up with a really, really good plan.
Ray, when you look at the job that Nick Sirianni has done in the limited amount of time he's been here, it's in some ways been phenomenal. Is it possible that the Nick Sirianni era of Eagles football could be even greater than Andy Reid, or is the sample size still too small to make a fair comparison?
It's still too soon. To put him and to really start trying to compare him to what Andy did, or again going back in history to Greasy Neal, who won back-to-back world championships. It's still early, but you're talking about a guy who has a 700 winning percentage at this point, and it doesn't give you the feeling that it's in any way a fluke or an accident. What he has done, it just seems like it just seems real solid. His approach to coaching, and you know this because you're around the team a lot, the feeling that you get about the connection of this coaching staff and these players is really, really good. You get the feeling that the coach trusts the players, but that works the other way too. The players trust what the coach is putting on the blackboard, and when you have that kind of synergy, you have a chance to do big things. And I think last year, in most people's minds, they overachieved by having the kind of season they had and going all the way to having a halftime lead at the Super Bowl. I don't think any of us forecast that. But coming into this year, I think the realization was, this team is really good. I think you and I were talking before the season started, and I said, I think it's the best roster in the NFL. I really do. And I've never said that about an Eagles team going into the season. But, it's no question. They have a lot of talent. They have a lot of players on this team. And you get the feeling that this coach really has both hands on the wheel. You get the feeling that he has grown up in this job, and he's got a lot of confidence in himself, and he's got tremendous confidence in his players. And you have to have that to win in the National Football League. You can't go into it with any kind of doubt or looking over your shoulder. I mean, you have to believe in yourself, and you have to believe in your players. And the Eagles have that going for them.
Of course, one of Sirianni's signature plays has become this tush push or brotherly shove. There's been a lot of public outcry about it, to the point the NFL and the NFLPA is now studying it to see the severity of injuries that could be caused from it. Do you think we're looking at the beginning of the end of the tush push? This will be the last season we see it in its current form?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. And I think there's going to be a lot of I think there's going to be a lot of sentiment on the part of the owners around the league. I think that there's a feeling around the league that this has almost given the Eagles an unfair advantage. And, they're not – now, this is just me surmising. I mean, nobody's told me this, but this is just my take on it. I think around the league, the feeling is the Eagles have an unfair advantage with this play. And they can't come out and say, we're going to get rid of this because it gives one team an unfair advantage. They won't be that honest about it. What they will get rid of it under the guise of player safety. They will get in, and you're already hearing that. Oh, we're going to look at it. Is this putting players at risk? I think that's the argument they will use. That's the excuse they will use to get rid of it. They'll say, yeah, we just looked at it and it looks like a kind of play where guys could get injured. And so we're going to outlaw it. Well, who can argue against player safety, right? I mean, if that's what you're going to say, what can we say? All right. But I don't think that's really it. I think it's the fact they feel the Eagles have a tremendous advantage, and they do. I mean, Derrick, you look at around the league now. You look at the stats going into this weekend's game. I haven't updated them, but you look into this going into this weekend's games. Fourth down conversion rate across the NFL, across the whole league. Fourth down conversions, 47% success. Okay, 47% conversions on fourth down, except the Eagles, who are like 98%. So, I mean, what a tremendous advantage they have. And it's a tremendous psychological advantage they have during the course of the game. I mean, the teams they're playing against are scared to death when the Eagles have the ball. It's no longer, at third down, if it's 3rd and 5, well, you used to be, I know they're going to pass. Not necessarily now. They might run it for 3.5 yards because they're going to go for it on fourth down. I mean, they can play the game a totally different way. And I'm fully confident that fourth down, yeah, we can punch it in there. We can get 1.5 yards, 2 yards, even 3 yards, because we've seen all that. And if you can do that 98% of the time, or whatever the number is with the Eagles, I mean, it was 4 for 4. 4 for 4 against Miami. If you're converting at that rate for your team, while the rest of the league can't even hit 50%, I mean, what an advantage that gives you. So, and Derrick, I would hate to see it go. I fear it's going away, but I would hate to see it go away.
Yeah.
Because I have forever, it has killed me to watch teams on 3rd and a yard or 3rd and 2 feet. You got this far to go for first down. Team comes out of the huddle and they line up in the shotgun. What are you doing? You've got this far to go to get a first down, but you're going to start the play snapping the ball 7 yards back. It never made sense to me. So what the Eagles are doing now, to me, it's something that I've always wondered why somebody wouldn't go this route. And, well, you need the players to do it, and the Eagles have it. But it's always driven me crazy. And this is one of the things with Andy. I mean, 3rd and 1 he always went to the shotgun. Yep. And I never understood, why are you giving away all that yardage when the nose of the football is practically getting you a first down right now?
Ray, you have been around this organization for so long, and we both know a little bit about Jeffrey Lurie. And one thing I think we can agree on. He has put so much time, effort, compassion, and focus into making this Eagles organization the best it can possibly be. And you look at his track record, his winning percentage in terms of getting his team since his ownership into the playoffs. What has separated Jeffrey's ownership compared to previous Eagles owners?
Well, his immediate predecessor, the biggest difference between he and Norman Brayman, it's very obvious. I mean, Jeffrey is a passionate football guy. I mean, he wants to win. You know, I mean, when he first bought the team, and it's a lot of years ago, talking to him in those early interviews in his first year here, I mean, all he talked about was talking about the San Francisco 49ers and Eddie DeBartolo and, building that kind of a team that was going to be in it and win it every year and wanting to win and wanting to, and when he talked about wanting to bring the Lombardi Trophy to Philadelphia, it wasn't lip service. I mean, he wasn't just saying that because I know that's what the fans want to hear. I mean, he really wanted to. I mean, he got into this because he loved the game and he really wanted to build an organization along the lines of what those 49er teams were. Not that they could just win it once, but a team that would be on top, in the mix every year. That was what he wanted to build. And by golly, he's kind of built it, Mm-hmm. But I think that to me was really what struck me about Jeffrey right away, was the fact that this guy was a huge fan, loved the game of football, really this owning a football team was something he really wanted to do, and he wanted to do it for the right reasons. He wanted to build a winning organization and win not just a Super Bowl, but multiple Super Bowls. And, Norman Brayman, who this guy before him, won some games. I mean, they had, the Buddy Ryan years, they certainly won some games, but it was never that big a deal to Norman Brayman. I mean, Brayman, he became an NFL owner because he liked the power, he liked the visibility, and he liked the money. I mean, he was a marketing genius. And part of the reason he wanted to get into the NFL was he wanted to become one of the leaders in NFL properties and help with the marketing of the game. And listen, he's good at that. And he brought a lot of new marketing principles to the NFL that helped make all the owners a lot of money. So he did all of that, and he made himself wealthy in the process, but he never really won anything. And I always got the feeling that, I'd like to win, but that wasn't the main reason he got into it. Well, that's the main reason that Jeffrey got into it. And he's built a terrific organization. I mean, you think about what he's done over this period of time, building a team that was really good and keeping it up there at that level with the top teams over a period of not just years, but decades. Yep. That's great ownership. And his record certainly speaks to that. And right now, I still believe that the Eagles are the best team in the NFL. And I think that they have a really good chance to do something that no NFC team has done in 50 years. And that is lose a Super Bowl and go back to a Super Bowl the next year. The last team that was able to do it from the NFC was the Fran Tarkenton Vikings back in the early 70s. It's a hard thing to do, but right now I think the Eagles have a really good chance of doing that.
We are talking to Hall of Fame writer Ray Didinger on this edition of Gun on One. We're going to step aside for just a moment to hear some words from our great sponsors. We'll be back in just a moment. Hey everybody, let me share something with you. Now, if you found a $100 bill on the ground, you wouldn't walk past it, right? So why are you passing up on cashing winners every weekend? You see, MyBookie has the biggest online selection of odds and contests to fill all your sports betting needs anytime, anywhere, so you can turn that sports knowledge into cash in your wallet. Bet on the NFL, Major League Baseball playoffs, or play for a share of big cash prizes in the weekly blackjack tournaments. If you've been waiting for the right time to get in on the action, that time is right now. Make your winning move today. Sign up in MyBookie using the promo code GUNN. That's all caps, GUNN, and claim your deposit match redeemable up to $1,000. That's right, $1,000. Again, the promo code is GUNN, all caps, GUNN, to claim your bonus. Experience the thrill of sports betting right from the comfort of your very own homes. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere, only with MyBookie.
Hey, it's Jeff Mosher. I love the fall because football's back, but it's also my busiest season. Between work, kids going back to school, youth sports and activities, there's just not enough time, especially to make a good home-cooked meal. That's why I love HelloFresh. They deliver farm-fresh food with pre-proportioned ingredients and seasonal recipes right to my doorstep. No more wasting time at the grocery store because America's #1 meal kit helps make home cooking easy, efficient, and affordable. We don't waste time researching new recipes and planning meals. With HelloFresh, the shopping's already done. The perfect amount of ingredients arrive with step-by-step recipe cards. How efficient is that? Plus, HelloFresh saves you time and money. HelloFresh is 25% less expensive than takeout, so you'll get a home-cooked meal without digging deep into your wallet. Don't forget about taste and selection. HelloFresh makes food for meat lovers, seafood lovers, vegetarians, and those who love variety. My personal favorites are the spicy Creole stew and pecan-crusted trout, 2 dinners my whole family enjoyed, and we actually had time to sit down together and eat at the table. Go to HelloFresh.com/50Eagles and use the code 50Eagles for 50% off plus free shipping. That's HelloFresh.com/50Eagles. Use that code 50Eagles for 50% off plus free shipping. Act now for America's #1 meal kit.
Back on this edition of Gun on One with one of my all-time favorites, Ray Didinger. And Ray, I want to talk about you for a little bit. You know, we talk football all the time. I want to talk more about Ray. And I know the topics I'm going to ask you about, you've probably answered this question over and over again. But people were shocked when you decided to step down and so-called retire after such an illustrious and distinguished career. When did you know, and why did you know that it was time to step down and say those words, "I'm retired"?
You know, I mean, you and I have been in this business a long time, and we've talked to a lot of players who come to the end of their career and they announce, you know what, I'm retiring. And we always ask them the question, like, why? And what they always say is, I just knew it was time. You know, that's what they all say. And that's kind of what it was with me. I just knew it was time. I was at the time that I made my decision. I was 75, which is not young. I had been doing the job for 53 years, and it just felt like, you know what? I'm really happy with what I've done. There's nothing I would have rather done. I mean, I loved my life. I loved my career. I was really proud of it. I was really proud of it. I was happy that I was able to do all the things I did, particularly doing them all in my hometown. I had that advantage. So I was just really happy with the way everything had gone. And I just kind of felt like, you know what? I think it's just time. I just think it's time. I mean, I could have kept doing it. You know, the WIP wanted me to stay. You know, the guys at NBC Sports, they wanted me to stay. I was by no means sort of pushed out the door. It was purely my decision. But, you know, Derrick, I just kind of felt like, I looked around the press box, you know, the last couple of years, and everybody looked so young. You know? I mean, they looked, I don't want to say my grandchildren, but I mean, they looked so young. And I just felt, you know, maybe without even realizing it, maybe I'm just a little out of step, you know, maybe it's just, you know, I don't want to be seen as the old guy. I don't want to be seen as the curmudgeon. I don't want to be seen as the dinosaur, you know, the guy who's living in the past. I didn't want any of that. I just felt like, you know, I was kind of in a good place professionally. And I just felt like, you know, sometimes you just have to pick the right time to step out the door. And I just felt that was it. And, you know, here we are, you know, a year later, and a lot of people are asking me, you know, geez, are you sorry you're retired now? I mean, look at what's happened in the Phillies in the World Series, the Eagles in the Super Bowl, all the great things that are going on. Wouldn't you love to still be doing it? No, I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it because I'm still experiencing it. I'm just, but now I'm back to being a fan. I'm able to root for these teams. When the Phillies win a game or the Eagles score a touchdown, I can actually jump up and cheer, and people won't give me a dirty look. So it's kind of I'm kind of going back to how I felt about sports as a kid. I can root for the Phillies, I can root for the Eagles, and not get reported to the Columbia School of Journalism. So there's something to be said for that. So that was really it. I just felt, I gave it a lot of thought. But I just felt like, you know what, it's been a great run, but I just felt it was time.
But Ray, I think you've redefined the meaning of the word retire, because you're still doing interviews, you're still on TV, you're still very visible. So a lot of people are saying, is he retired or isn't he? You're the most unretired person I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, my wife says that every day. And there's some truth to that. But I think, Derrick, I think it's partly a function of what I just said, the way things are happening in Philadelphia now, with all the teams are winning. The Eagles are so good. The Phillies have been so good. As long as those teams are winning and Philly sports is in the news, my phone keeps ringing, and a lot of out of town radio stations, a lot of podcasters all around the country. They still have my phone number from years ago, and they don't know I've retired, but they want to, let's call somebody in Philly to talk about what's happening. I'll call Ray. And okay, they call me up, and, I'm not going to say no. If somebody wants to talk, I'll talk. If the Eagles were just kind of mediocre and the Phillies were kind of mediocre, I think that, I probably would be just lying on the couch somewhere. But the fact that they're making news pretty much every day has sort of kept me in the news a little bit. But, I don't have, the thing is, I can kind of pick and choose, Derrick. I'm in a really good spot. I can kind of pick and choose what I want to do and how much I want to do. I'm not in that place that I used to be, where I had deadlines, where I had to be in an office every day. I had to file that story on that particular day, where I had to be in the studio at a particular time. And a lot of it is stuff like this that I can do from home. And it's actually pretty easy. And it's a lot of fun because there's nothing but good things to talk about.
Ray, when you look back on your career and how popular you became, how did you reconcile with how famous you became?
Oh, it never really felt that way. It never really felt that way, and it never really occurred to me. I mean, I never realized, I never even thought about that stuff until I actually did announce my retirement, and the reaction to that announcement. All the cards and letters I got, all the emails I got, all the phone calls I got. From people, saying that they were going to miss me, that, how much they enjoyed the work I had done. People who had kept albums, scrapbooks of articles that I had written, people I didn't even know, people, perfect strangers that had been, following me through newspapering, through radio, through television, all those years. I had no idea that was out there. Until I announced my retirement, and all of a sudden I began hearing from all those people. So it was very surprising to me. Glenn Macnell, my radio partner, he talked about it. He said there's going to be a real reaction to this, and I said, oh, I don't think so. And then he was right. There was, and the more I thought about it, it kind of made sense, because everything that guys like you and me do. We really do form a connection with our audience, and especially in a really intimate medium like radio, when you have a regular Saturday show, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. every Saturday, every Sunday, that people get into the habit of turning on the radio and inviting you into their kitchen. Right. And you're in the car with them when they're driving their kids to Little League, and you're there keeping them company when they're painting the garage, and you never meet these people. You don't even really know they're there, but they're connected to you. And,
Right.
and so that kind of thing, I never really thought about it when I was doing the show. To me, it was just me and Glenn having fun. But when people would write these stories about, I never missed a show, when I was in the hospital recovering from surgery, the one thing I looked forward to was listening to your show. People having these very personal feelings and these very personal connections to you is something that I really didn't appreciate at the time, but I've come to appreciate now.
What has your success and notoriety meant to you in a general sense?
I don't think about that a whole lot.
Okay.
I like when I would be told that I'm being put in the Hall of Fame. It was like, really? I mean, that was kind of my reaction. I certainly didn't get into this for any idea of becoming famous.
Right.
I got into doing it because it was what I wanted to do and because I really enjoyed doing it. And the idea of being a, quote unquote celebrity never occurred to me. I never aspired for that. I just loved the work. But the one thing that I really feel good about is that that the people I covered, that the coaches and players that I covered over the years, those guys, when I retired, the things that they said, the fact that they respected me as a professional, that they thought that they felt that I was an honest reporter, they felt that I treated them fairly, that they trusted me over time. That probably means more to me than any of the plaques or any of that other stuff. Is that the people that I covered felt like that I was a professional and I did my job in an honest, forthright way. To me, that's the kind of thing that I really feel good about, because that's what I tried to be. I tried to be an honest reporter. I didn't care to be a celebrity. I didn't care to be a big face on television or any of that stuff. I just wanted to be a reporter, and I wanted to be a good one. And if the people that I covered over time felt that I achieved that, and that they felt like when they were talking to me after a game, that I would be fair and I would be accurate in how I quoted them, and I would be fair in how I portrayed them. If when it's all said and done, that's how they felt about me, then I feel really good about that.
All right, I'm looking for the exclusive. Will Ray Didinger ever officially step out of the limelight and into the shadows and just quietly ride off into the media sunset?
Well, that was the plan. That was the plan. I told people, when I announced my retirement, they said, "Well, are you going to stay and do some stuff?" And I said, "No." I said, my idea of what I'm going to do with this is, I said, I kind of want to do this like Johnny Carson, do my last Tonight Show and then goodbye. You're not going to see me again. That honestly was what I thought how it was going to be. Well, it certainly hasn't turned out that way. And as I said, a lot of it really has to do with the stuff that's been happening around us. And I'm okay with that. But will I ever totally step away? Nah, I don't know. It depends. I think at some point I will. I mean, the thing is, I've really, everybody thinks that I'm really still very active. And I'm still doing stuff. I mean, we're sort of half kidding about this, but I'm still doing this kind of stuff. But I'm also able to I've got things going on in my private life that I would have never been able to do before. Like my wife and I, we went to Italy last month in September. We went to Italy for 2 weeks. And it was great. It was the first time I had ever taken a vacation in September. All the years you're in school, obviously you're not taking a vacation in September. And then when I got to working and I was covering football, obviously you aren't going to take time off in September. So this was the first time I was actually able to plan and enjoy a vacation in the month of September. And so Eagles season's going on and all that, Phillies are making their run to the playoffs. And my wife and I are off riding a ferry and, in Bergamo over in Italy. And just really enjoying that. And, and on Saturdays, instead of doing the radio, which I loved, but instead of having to go to a studio and do a radio show, I get in the car and go off and see my grandsons play football. So, I'm being able to do things in my private life with my family that I wasn't able to do before. And that was a big part of the reason why I decided to retire. So I guess you could say I kind of almost have the best of all worlds because I'm getting my time with my family. I'm seeing my grandsons play football. I'm traveling with my wife and having a ball, but I'm still part of what's happening with the Phillies and the Eagles. So I really kind of think it's turned out that I kind of have the best of all worlds here.
You have achieved so much in your career, numerous awards, written books, written a play. What would you say is your single most greatest achievement?
I think the highlight probably is the play. I think the highlight is probably that, and more than that, I think the highlight is kind of my relationship with Tommy McDonald, and how that friendship that started in 1957 with me as a 10-year-old kid in an autograph book, meeting my boyhood hero, and developing the beginning of a relationship that carried us both through our 40 years of our lives. And me, him asking me to be his presenter when he went to the Hall of Fame, and being able to spend that weekend with him in Canton and ride in the parade in an open convertible with him through the streets of Canton, with a guy who in the 1950s, when you were a little boy, was your hero. And here you are sitting next to him in the Hall of Fame parade, and you're going to give the speech introducing him as a Hall of Famer. I think that as a single moment, as a single experience, I don't think there's anything else that could top that. And then being able to sit down and write a play about it, which I never thought I'd ever write a play, but I wrote that, and then actually seeing it come to the stage. And then having him and his family in the audience seeing it, that whole experience, that whole chapter of my life is probably, more than any of the individual awards or anything. I think that probably was the highlight, because it was just so unexpected and so meaningful to me to have had that kind of relationship with my boyhood hero, and then be in the position to actually help him achieve the thing he wanted most of all, which was a spot in the Hall of Fame. The fact that all of that really happened was that was really great. So if I had to pick one, that would probably be it.
As close as you got to Tommy as a friend, did you find it sometimes difficult to be objective because of your relationship with him?
No. I mean, I think that I could make that. I think I could separate it. I mean, he was always my hero. I mean, that was for sure. And the memories I had of him and the time we spent together up in Hershey training camp back in the 50s, when I would carry his helmet to practice and all. I mean, that was a part of my life that was just wonderful, and I'll never forget that. But later on, when I became a reporter and I began mounting the effort to get him into the Hall of Fame, when I began really trying to work to build his case to get him in the Hall of Fame, no, I could be pretty objective about it. I mean, I could be, I don't think I would have gone to the lengths that I did if I didn't really feel he deserved it. I wouldn't have done that out of pure fandom. I respect the Hall of Fame and I respect the game too much to try and build a case that I didn't really believe in. But the fact is I did. And I was pretty objective about it when I broke it down. And when I looked at the numbers, to me, there was no question he was a Hall of Famer. And I was perfectly willing and perfectly happy to be the guy that led the charge to get him in. And, at the time, Derrick, at the time that he retired, he had on the all-time NFL list. He had the 6th most catches, the 4th most yards, and the 2nd most touchdowns of anybody in the history of the game. And he had to wait 30 years to get in the Hall of Fame. No, I mean, his case was pretty solid, and I felt being pretty good about being his advocate.
Just a couple of more questions for you, Ray, because I've taken up more than enough of your time. The game of football itself has changed so much through the decades, all the rule changes and so on and so forth, Thursday night games. Where do you stand on how the game is now? Do you like what you've seen in the game? Are there some things that still make you cringe about pro football as we know it today?
There are 2 things. The biggest thing is my concern and our all heightened awareness of the injury factor, of the CTE factor. And that also has a lot to do with Tommy. I mean, and Tommy in the last few years of his life had really bad CTE, and I saw what it did to him. And then after he passed, they sent his brain up to BU, and it was studied, and they found out that he had the highest level of CTE, and that's what he dealt with at the end of his life. And it was tragic. It was really sad. And that I feel bad about that. I feel bad about that generation of players that in their later life, had to deal with all of these things. That makes me feel bad. And I am a 100% advocate for doing everything you can to make this a safer game, be it the rules, be it the equipment, whatever it is, to try and make it. Look, we all know football is football, and it'll never be a pillow fight. I mean, football is football. But to try and make the game as safe as it can be, I'm 100% advocate of that. And the other thing is, I just think they're the people that are running the league, and I guess the owners are probably most responsible for this. I mean, they're just the things that they're doing. That you mentioned it. Thursday night games and Monday night games and Sunday night games, and all these games over in Europe, and the idea of globalizing the game and marketing the game and selling the game, and I just don't think it's moving in a healthy direction. Too much of it seems to be about how can we make more money, as opposed to how can we better serve the game and serve the fans. I mean, I come from an era, and you probably do too, when the NFL was Sunday afternoon, 1:00 kickoff.
That's right.
And and then Monday Night Football comes along, the one sort of showcase game. Okay, that was cool, But now, I mean, there's games. It's almost like they're trying to make it into the NBA, and it ain't the NBA, and it ain't ever going to be. It should never be the NBA. But that's kind of the way the owners are doing this, and I just think that there's so much focus being put on the commercialization and the marketing and selling and making money off the game, that it would be better invested if you worried more about the quality of the game, serving the fans, and protecting the players.
If Ray Didinger could change one thing about the NFL, what would it be?
Well, off the top of my head, it would be get rid of Thursday night football. If I was the NFL commissioner and they came to me with that idea, I would have said, "Are you out of your mind? Thursday night games? You realize how unfair that is to the coaches who have to try and prepare for that, and for the players who have to physically put their bodies back together and go play in that game? Do you realize that for the visiting team will be lucky to get 1 day of practice, because Monday is healing up day, and then Tuesday is coach's study day. Wednesday, you're traveling. I mean, you'll be lucky to get 1 good practice in, and then you're going to go out and try and play a professional football game on Thursday. That's just not the way the game was meant to be played. And I understand there's money to be made and all that kind of stuff, but to me, I just think it's unfair to the coaches and players to put them in that position. But look, it's never going to go away. I mean, it's installed and it's there. I just don't think that makes it a good idea.
All right, Ray, final question for you. Does Ray Didinger have a cell phone and or a Twitter/X account yet?
Well, no and no. Well, no about the cell phone. I've never had one, and I don't ever intend to have one. And that other thing you talked about, I don't even have the first clue about what you were talking about. I have no idea what that was. I mean, you were speaking a foreign language to me. No, I listen. Okay, give me credit. I mean, at least I was able to hook this thing up and do a
Yes,
Zoom call with you. I mean,
I'm
to me,
proud of you.
well, I mean, for me, that's like Star Wars stuff that I'm able to do this. But as far as taking it beyond this, no, I don't think that's ever going to happen, Derrick.
Ray Didinger, you are one of a kind, and I mean that in the most professional, respectful, sincerest way possible. You have been since my arrival in this region. You will always be one of my all-time favorites. I thank you so much for taking the time to sit here and chat with me on Gun on One.
Hey, listen, it's been so much fun, and we were part of the startup for when Sportsnet launched way back when. I met you then. Back when they were still building the studio, and we were all stepping around the wires, and things were hanging from the ceiling, and those were great times. And I've met a lot of great people in 53 years in this business, but you're right at the top of the list. It's been a real pleasure working with you. You're a gentleman. You're a total professional, and the city's been lucky to have you.
Coming from you, I am humbled by that. Thank you, my friend. And that's going to wrap up this edition of Gun on One. It is powered by the Inside the Birds Network and sponsored by MyBookie. For the Hall of Fame writer, my colleague, and most importantly, my friend Ray Didinger, I'm Derrick Gunn. We'll see you next time.